Hey, since we're opening up, can I tell you guys something top secret?
Brother, everything's a secret when you're blacked out.
Right. All right. We're gonna let Trump do a third term.
Yeah! Come on! I thought that was unconstitutional.
The danger, the scary part isn't the certainty. The scary part is the plausibility.
Matt GPT, I have a question. Can Donald Trump serve a third term?
The Constitution is clear. No president can serve more than 2 terms. It's been law since 1951. So why is Trump still talking about being in office for 8 or 9 more years? Let's talk about where that law came from and if Donald Trump could actually serve another term. The Founding Fathers actually debated this. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, there were serious voices in the room who wanted term limits written into the Constitution from the start. They were outvoted. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and others led the argument against them. Their position was straightforward. In a democracy, the people should decide. Term limits, they argued, were undemocratic. They punished good leaders and removed the voters' right to choose. Hamilton went further. He argued that a president who knew he couldn't serve again had less incentive to govern well. Accountability comes from wanting to keep the job. George Washington could have served a third term. He was the most popular figure in the country. Nobody was going to stop him. He said no, because he believed no man should hold that kind of power indefinitely. That decision became a tradition, and that tradition held for 150 years. But then came Franklin Roosevelt. FDR won 4 elections. He guided the country through the Great Depression and World War II. But when Republicans took Congress in 1946, they passed what became the 22nd Amendment. Ratified in 1951, it said no person shall be elected to the office of president more than once. Simple, clear, done. Or so everyone thought until President Trump started talking about a third term and selling hats that say 2028. There are really only 4 theoretical routes for Trump to serve a third term. The first is a constitutional amendment, but you need 2/3 of both chambers and 3/4 of the states. The math is virtually impossible. The second is the vice president's succession workaround, but that is blocked by the 12th Amendment's eligibility language. The third is the Speaker of the House succession, but that too is blocked by Presidential Succession Act's eligibility requirement. So there's really only one path that works, and it goes through the courts, specifically through judges who are willing to reinterpret language in the 22nd Amendment that has never actually been tested in a courtroom. Which brings us to the Senate Judiciary Committee confirmation hearings for Trump's federal court nominees. 4 of them, hoping for a lifetime appointment to the federal bench, couldn't tell Senator Chris Coons whether the president is barred from a third term.
Has President Trump been elected president twice?
President Trump has been certified the President of the United States 2 times.
Is he eligible to run for a third term under our Constitution?
I would have to review the
All I need to tell you is
it.
the language of the constitutional amendment that makes it clear that no, he is not eligible to run for a third term. Anybody else brave enough to say that the Constitution of the United States prevents President Trump from seeking a third term? Anybody willing to apply the Constitution by its plain language in the 22nd Amendment? Nobody. All right, let's move on.
Back in September 2025, Justice Sotomayor said it explicitly.
No one has tried to challenge that. Until somebody tries, you don't know. So it's not settled because we don't have a court case about that issue.
She wasn't being wishy-washy. She was telling you the mechanism by which it gets tested. And Justice Barrett, when Brett Baird asked her if the amendment was cut and dry, she didn't say yes. She said,
that's what the amendment says, right? You know, after FDR had 4 terms, that's what that amendment says.
That's what the amendment says. A response critics noted was conspicuously careful. But here's what I keep coming back to. Trump isn't acting like a man in his final term. The question we should all be asking is this: was this the plan all along? Because if it was, the justices being confirmed right now may be the most important political story of our time.
There are 2 stories that one could tell about everything you just laid out. I'm going to give you the first one. You can call it kind of the scientific null hypothesis, the most likely thing that's going on here. This is just another quintessential Trump story. It's about trolling and ego and leverage and money. Feeding the story that he might somehow manage to continue being president in 2029 and beyond, it feeds his ego. It's flattering. It provides the trollings, the poking the left, the fueling of a media narrative. It moves the conversation. We're having this conversation right now. So it does a number of personality-driven things and political media things for him. And don't forget that the starting point for understanding any Trump behavior is it's either about his ego or finding a chintzy scheme for making money. And this isn't limited to just selling more MAGA hats. It could also increase leverage for his sons, who are literally running around the world, making deals, usually with autocratic regimes, to try to make billions more on crypto or real estate or some other underhanded deal. The prospect that he and his family might continue to wield power into the future makes those deals more attractive and gives him more business leverage.
I think that's what Trump wants people to think it is. I think it works well in his plan to make you think he's just trolling. He's normalizing it, so when you move forward, it's okay, because you've been talking about it now for 4 years. Look, he's doing the same thing with executive orders. So he's normalizing that abuse of power anyway. You normalize the rest of it, but you call it, I'm just owning the libs. We're not really being serious. It's just a way to make it okay when you get there.
That's the competing hypothesis here.
Right.
And there's a darker term for what you just described. You said that's normalizing. You could also say it's grooming. And you are right that this fits into a long-standing pattern. Float an idea, repeat it, make it sound like you're half joking. You have a line of retreat. You get your supporters used to hearing it. You see who objects. It's like that line from the movie Signs, the military guy saying, this is a military technique. It's called probing, trying to see what the limits are and how far you can push them. It's really stress testing institutions, and that's fine, until the confusion itself becomes a pathway to holding on to power. There's possibly apocryphal line attributed to President Andrew Jackson after a Supreme Court ruling that the Supreme Court Chief Justice John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. The court system relies on the shared understanding that we all have. Oh, you follow the rulings of the courts. It's clear that Trump doesn't fundamentally believe that. Not to mention the fact that we've seen so many examples of this Supreme Court ignoring the clear writing of the Constitution, the letter of the law, the strict constructionist, whatever right-wing term you want to apply. They just ignore it in order to help Donald Trump. So you put it all together, and it sounds like what you're saying is that's a very real possibility to you. The very fact that we can have an in-depth discussion where both of us, with all of our experience in government and politics, say, this is real. This is not that far-fetched, that he might be setting up a real test of let the Supreme Court, like maybe they'll rule with me. And even if they don't, let them enforce it. That is very concerning.
You got Steve Bannon, who has said that there are plans already on the table on how they're going to do it, and he's going to release those later. He is a guy that would be a part of this conversation. They have outlined it. There's a lot of things Trump has done so far in the last year where you've looked at those and said, well, you can't do it, but they found a way to work it through. The other nugget that I would point to, 22nd Amendment has never really been challenged in court. So when you see those justices being asked by Senator Coons and they won't answer, everybody thinks they're just playing to Trump, but they're missing the point, because that's not what's happening. They're not playing to Trump. There is a legitimate issue out there, and they're not going on record with it, because when these justices are installed along the way, those are going to be the first places that the lawsuit's going to happen.
This is becoming the Death Star conversation, right?
Yes.
Like that moment where the Imperial officer comes to Admiral Tarkin and says, we've analyzed their attack pattern and there is a danger. And the very fact that we're analyzing the attack pattern and we're saying there is a danger, that's a big deal in itself. We don't have to say that there's certainty here. It's not the danger. The scary part isn't the certainty. The scary part is the plausibility.
Look, I'm of the opinion that as a Republican, do we really think an 81-year-old guy who right now has visible signs of physical and perhaps cognitive issues, is he really our best choice? And if he's the guy we do nominate, do I really think he's going to win? It depends on who the Democrats put up, but probably not. So do I think Trump's going to be president a third term? No, I don't think that's happening. But I do think there is a path. I think they're actively exploring that path, and I think they will exploit that path as much as they possibly can. It may not ever happen, but there is a legitimate path that nobody is really talking about because they just want to say the law is cut and dry. And the reality is the law isn't as cut and dry as we think it is, and they're installing people along the way that could challenge that.